The morning sun cast long shadows across the deep space monitoring station as Dr. Kim Hannah checked her instruments for the third time. She had been doing this job for 15 years, watching the empty darkness of space for any sign that humanity was not alone. For 200 years, Earth had been completely cut off from the rest of the galaxy. It all started when humans first met alien species called the hegemony. These aliens controlled most of the galaxy and had 12 different species working together, but when they met humans, they decided that people from Earth were too aggressive and dangerous, so they removed Earth's location from all their maps and pretended humans never existed. Director Kim called Lieutenant Park Day from across the control room. His voice was excited and worried at the same time. "I'm seeing something strange. On the sensors, there are huge energy readings coming from the edge of our solar system." Hannah quickly moved to the main computer. She had special implants in her brain that let her connect directly with the station's advanced computers. When she linked up, the information flowed into her mind like water. What she saw made her heart race. "These are not natural energy signatures," she said, her fingers moving quickly over the glowing controls. "Something massive is out there. Multiple objects, all moving with clear purpose." The data showed enormous structures traveling through space. They were definitely built by someone, not natural objects like asteroids or comets. But the strangest part was where they were going. "They're not coming toward Earth," Hannah whispered, studying the path of the mysterious objects. "They're heading toward Proxima Centauri. Whatever these things are, they're creating gravitational waves so strong we can detect them from here." Far below on Earth's surface, President Lee Jun stood in the government's main meeting room. Floating screens surrounded him, showing the same alarming data that Dr. Kim Hannah was analyzing in space. The room itself was a marvel of human engineering, built inside a city that floated high in Earth's atmosphere. During the 2 centuries of isolation, humans had not sat still. They had built incredible things. Cities now floated among the clouds like giant balloons. The oceans were full of new life forms that humans had created to clean the water and provide food. Most impressive of all, the moon had been turned into a massive factory for building spaceships. 200 years, President Lee said to his advisors, shaking his head. 200 years since those aliens decided we were too dangerous to be part of their galactic community. Now something big is happening out there, and we still don't know what's going on. Defense Minister Cho Mina stepped forward. Her eyes had been replaced with advanced computer systems that constantly showed her military information. She could see things that normal human eyes could never detect. "Sir," she said in her calm professional voice, "we've been preparing for this day for decades. Our deep space scout ships are ready. Maybe it's time we showed the galaxy that Earth is still here and stronger than ever." Back at the monitoring station, more data was coming in every minute. Dr. Kim Hannah watched as the massive objects continued their journey toward the nearby star system. Her computers calculated their size and speed, and the results were frightening. "These things are huge," she told Lieutenant Park Day. "Each one is the size of a small city, and they're moving faster than anything we've ever built." "Could they be alien ships?" Park asked, his young face full of concern. "Possibly," Hannah replied, "but not from any species we know about. The energy patterns are completely different from what the hegemony used when they visited Earth 2 centuries ago." She continued to study the readings, trying to understand what they were seeing. The objects seemed to be scanning space as they moved, as if they were looking for something, or someone. Director Park said suddenly, "What if these aren't ships at all? What if there's something else entirely?" Hannah paused her work and looked at him. "What do you mean?" "Well," Park said slowly, "what if they're machines designed to find and destroy things? What if someone sent them to attack the galaxy?" The idea sent a chill down Hannah's spine. If Park was right, then Earth might be witnessing the beginning of an invasion of the same galaxy that had rejected and forgotten about humanity. Down on Earth, President Lee Jun came to the same conclusion as he studied the data with his advisors. Whatever these mysterious objects were, they represented a threat to everything in this part of space, including Earth. "Minister Cho," he said finally, "begin preparations for Operation Distant." It's time we sent our own ships to see what's really happening out there." "Yes, sir," Cho Mina replied with a slight smile. "I think the galaxy is about to remember why they were afraid of us in the first place." As the day continued, more monitoring stations around Earth detected the same energy signatures. Humanity was about to step back onto the galactic stage, but this time they would not be the scared, primitive species that the aliens had rejected centuries ago. They had evolved, grown stronger, and developed technologies that the galaxy had never seen. The aliens had made their biggest mistake when they chose to forget about Earth. Admiral Yunte had been in space for 30 years, but he had never seen anything like this. His ship, the Eternal Dawn, was the most advanced stealth vessel that Earth had ever built. It could travel through space without being detected by any known technology. Today, that invisibility was the only thing keeping his crew alive. They had just come out of quantum tunnel travel, a way of moving faster than light that humans had developed during their isolation. The ship's sensors immediately began scanning the area around Kepler Station, which was supposed to be one of the busiest trading posts in this part of the galaxy. What they found instead was a nightmare. "Sir," whispered Navigation Officer Han Su, his voice shaking with fear, "you need to see this." Through the ship's main viewing screen, they watched as massive geometric shapes moved around what was left of Kepler Station. These things didn't look like any spaceships Admiral Yoon had ever studied. They were more like floating mathematical puzzles made of dark metal, constantly changing shape as they worked. The creatures were taking apart the space station piece by piece, but they weren't just destroying it randomly. They were carefully removing each section, breaking it down into smaller parts, and then using those parts to build more of themselves. "What are those things?" asked Lieutenant Kimbo, the ship's weapons officer. "I don't know," Admiral Yoon replied, "but they're not from around here. The computer says their energy patterns don't match anything in our databases or the old hegemony records." Honsu was running more detailed scans with the ship's advanced sensors. These energy signatures, they're completely alien, not just alien like the hegemony species. These things came from outside our galaxy entirely. The Admiral watched in horror as one of the geometric creatures approached a section of the station where people were still alive. The station's defensive systems fired energy weapons at the approaching threat, but something impossible happened. Instead of being damaged by the weapons, the creature somehow absorbed the energy and became bigger and stronger. "Did you see that?" Kimbo gasped. "It ate the weapons fire." The creatures moved with perfect coordination, like parts of a single giant machine. When the station tried to fight back with physical missiles, the creatures caught them in midair and took them apart at the atomic level. Nothing seemed to work against them. "We need to get this information back to Earth immediately," Admiral Yoon said. "These things are more dangerous than anything we've ever encountered." Meanwhile, far away on Nexus Prime, the capital world of the alien hegemony, panic was spreading through the government buildings. The High Council was meeting in emergency session, and the news they were hearing got worse every hour. Supreme Coordinator Vexstar stood in the center of the Great Council chamber. He was a member of the Andromedan species, with 6 arms and skin that changed color based on his emotions. Right now, his skin was flashing bright red with alarm. "The situation is catastrophic," he announced to the assembled representatives of 12 different alien species. "In the past month, 17 entire star systems have stopped communicating with us. Our fleets are being destroyed faster than we can send them." A holographic display showed the galaxy with red dots marking all the systems that had gone silent. The pattern was clear and terrifying. The attacks were moving steadily toward the center of galactic civilization. "These invaders learn from every battle," Vexter continued, his voice translator struggling to convert his emotional state into understandable words. "Every weapon we use against them, they adapt to counter it. Every tactic we employ, they develop a defense for." In the audience, representatives from different worlds were arguing loudly in their various languages. Some wanted to evacuate their planets, others demanded that all available military forces be sent to stop the invaders, but nobody had any good ideas about how to actually fight an enemy that seemed impossible to defeat. Deep beneath the council chambers, in the vast archives where the hegemony kept all their historical records, a young archivist named Kalanis was working late into the night. She had been tasked with searching through old files to find any information about similar threats from the past. Most of the files were routine reports about trade agreements, planetary surveys, and diplomatic meetings. But then she found something strange in a section marked with the highest security classifications. The file was labeled Species 7834H, Quarantine Designation, Aggressive Expansion Risk. It had been sealed for 200 years and required special clearance to open. But given the current emergency, Kalanis decided to break protocol and look inside. What she found made her heart skip a beat. The file contained detailed information about a species called humans from a small yellow star. According to the records, these humans had been contacted once by the hegemony but were considered too dangerous to include in galactic civilization. The file described humans as highly adaptable, technologically innovative, and capable of rapid military advancement. Most importantly, it noted that they had been completely isolated from the galaxy for the past 2 centuries. Kalanus realized that she might have found the answer to the hegemony's desperate situation. Somewhere out there was an entire species that the galaxy had forgotten about, a species that might have developed new technologies and weapons during their long isolation. She printed the coordinates and ran toward the council chambers, hoping it wasn't too late to find help from the species they had abandoned centuries ago. Ambassador Velteran had visited hundreds of worlds during his long career as a diplomat for the hegemony. His crystalline body could adapt to almost any environment, and his species had developed technology that allowed them to travel between stars with ease. But when his ship came out of hyperspace near Earth's solar system, he was completely shocked by what he saw. "This cannot be real," he whispered to his aide, staring at the sensor readings in disbelief. The solar system had been completely transformed. Huge structures floated in space around every planet, connected by streams of energy that pulsed like living things. Around Mars, there were ring-shaped cities that spun slowly in orbit. Near Jupiter, massive mining operations extracted resources from the gas giant's moons, and Earth itself glowed with a soft blue light that indicated incredible technological advancement. "Sir," said his aide, a young member of the hegemony's research division, "according to our old records, these humans could barely travel to their own moon when we quarantined them 200 years ago. How did they build all of this?" Velteran's crystalline form flickered with different colors as he processed the information. His species showed emotions through light patterns, and right now he was displaying deep confusion mixed with growing respect. "It seems we made a serious mistake," he said quietly. "We thought isolation would keep them contained. Instead, it allowed them to grow stronger than we ever imagined." The human ships that approached to escort the diplomatic delegation were unlike anything in the hegemony's databases. They were sleek and fast, moving through space like schools of fish swimming through water, instead of the massive, heavily armed vessels that most species prefer. Human ships were smaller but seemed to work together as a single unit. President Lee Jun waited for the alien delegation in the Aurora Council chamber, a beautiful building, made entirely of crystal that floated high in Earth's atmosphere. Through the transparent walls, the ambassadors could see the incredible changes that had taken place on the planet below. Cities floated among the clouds like islands in the sky. The oceans sparkled with new forms of life that humans had created to help clean the water and provide food. Even the weather seemed to be under human control, with storms forming and disappearing in patterns that were clearly artificial. "Welcome to Earth," President Lee said as the alien delegation entered the chamber. His voice was calm and polite, but there was something underneath it that made the aliens nervous. "I must say, I'm surprised to see you here. After all, your people worked very hard to make sure we would never meet again." Ambassador Velteran's body flickered with embarrassed orange lights. "President Lee, we come to you in desperate times. The galaxy faces a threat unlike anything we have encountered before. Entire star systems are being consumed by machines. We call the Devourers, and you want our help," Lee replied, settling back in his chair. "How interesting. For 2 centuries, you told the galaxy that humans were too aggressive and dangerous to be trusted. You erased our coordinates from your maps and pretended we didn't exist. Now you need us." Defense Minister Chomina stepped forward from her position behind the president's chair. The alien delegates gasped when they saw her. Her body had been enhanced with advanced technology that made her much taller and stronger than a normal human. Her eyes glowed with data displays, and her movements had the precision of a machine combined with the grace of a living being. "The Devourers are adapting to all of your traditional weapons and tactics," she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent decades preparing for war. "Your energy weapons feed them. Your heavy armor is useless against the ability to consume matter. You need a completely different approach." Velteran nodded frantically, his crystalline form now pulsing with desperate blue lights. "Yes, exactly. Our military leaders are at a complete loss. These machines learn from every battle and become stronger. We need new ideas, new strategies. Then you'll accept our terms," President Lee said, standing up from his chair. "Full recognition of humanity as an equal member of galactic civilization, complete access to all trade routes and technological exchanges, and most importantly, human military commanders will lead the joint response against this threat." The alien delegation looked at each other with uncertainty. They had come to Earth expecting to find the same primitive species they had rejected, Centuries ago, instead, they found themselves negotiating with a civilization that had clearly surpassed their own in many ways. We accept, Velteron said finally. The Hegemony Council has given me full authority to make any agreement necessary to stop the Devourers. Within hours, the combined fleet began to assemble in Earth's orbit. Captain Shinho stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, humanity's most advanced warship, watching as alien vessels took positions alongside human ships. The contrast was remarkable. The Hegemony ships were massive and heavily armored, designed for the kind of traditional space battles that had dominated galactic warfare for thousands of years. Human ships were smaller and faster, built to work together in coordinated swarms that could attack from multiple directions at once. All ships reporting ready for departure, announced Communications Officer Bang Su from his station. The alien commanders are requesting final orders, sir. Captain Shinho looked through the main viewport at the dark shape approaching from deep space. The Devourer fleet looked like a living shadow, consuming the light of stars as it moved toward populated systems. Send a message to all ships, he said calmly. Today, the galaxy learns what humans can do when we're not fighting alone. The first major battle between the combined fleet and the Devourers took place near the bright star called Rigel. Captain Shinho stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, watching as the alien ships from the Hegemony prepared for battle in their traditional way. The alien vessels were enormous, like floating cities covered in weapons. They moved into straight lines, facing the enemy directly, ready to fire their most powerful energy beams. This was how galactic warfare had been fought for thousands of years. Big ships, firing big weapons until one side was destroyed. Look at them, said Lieutenant Ne Young from her position at the tactical controls. They're setting up the same way their ancestors did. They haven't learned anything new in centuries. Captain Shinho nodded as he watched the alien formations. That's exactly why the Devourers are winning against them. They're predictable. The human fleet was completely different. Instead of forming battle lines, the smaller human ships spread out across space in what looked like random patterns. But there was nothing random about it. All ships, prepare for scatter pattern alpha, Captain Shinho announced over the communication system. Quantum tunnel jump on my mark. Na Young's fingers moved quickly over her controls. She had special implants in her brain that let her connect directly with the ship's artificial intelligence systems. Together they could coordinate the movements of hundreds of ships at the same time. Swarm formation is ready, sir, she reported. All ships are connected through quantum communication. We can act as one mind controlling many bodies. Execute jump, Shinho commanded. In an instant, the entire human fleet disappeared from normal space. The alien commanders from the Hegemony stared in confusion at their sensors, wondering where their human allies had gone. The answer came seconds later when the human ships reappeared all around the Devourer machines. Instead of attacking from one direction like the aliens, the humans materialized from every angle at once, like a swarm of angry bees surrounding their target. The Hegemony ships fired their massive energy weapons at the geometric Devourer constructs. Just as in previous battles, the enemy machines absorbed the energy and used it to make themselves stronger. The alien commanders watched in frustration as their most powerful weapons only fed their enemies. But the human attack was completely different. Instead of using large energy beams, human ships fired small, precise shots at specific points on the Devourer machines. When one ship attacked, dozens of others would target the same spot from different angles. It's working, Na Young reported. Excitedly, the Devourers can adapt to energy absorption, but they can't handle coordinated physical impacts from multiple directions at the same time. Dr. Kim Hanna, who had been transferred from the monitoring station to serve as the flagship's science officer, was studying the enemy machines through the ship's advanced sensors. What she discovered would change everything. Captain, she called out urgently, I've figured out how these things work. They're all connected to each other through some kind of communication network. That's how they coordinate their movements so perfectly. Shinho looked over at her, dodging as the ship shook from a near miss by a Devourer weapon. Can we use that against them? Yes, Hannah replied, her eyes bright with excitement. Our quantum computers work in ways that their network can't understand. If we can send the right kind of signal into their communication system, we might be able to confuse them or even shut them down. The breakthrough came during the battle at the Centauri Nebula, where over 1,000 human ships worked together in perfect coordination. Dr. Hanna had programmed the fleet's quantum computers to generate a special kind of interference signal. Ships ready for quantum disruption attack, Na Young announced, targeting the enemy communication network. Fire, commanded Captain Shinho. The disruption wave was invisible to the naked eye, but its effects were immediate and dramatic. Devourer machines, which had been moving together like parts of a single organism, suddenly began acting randomly. Without their network connection, they couldn't tell the difference between enemies and other devourers. For the first time since the invasion began, the geometric machines turned their weapons on each other. Some tried to consume others, thinking they were enemy ships. Others spun in circles, their navigation systems unable to function without network guidance. The human and alien crews cheered as they watched the enemy fleet destroy itself. It was the first major victory against the Devourers, and it proved that the seemingly invincible machines could be defeated. But the celebration was short. Back at the command center on New Seoul Station, Admiral Yuntae was receiving troubling reports from scout ships at the edge of the galaxy. "Sir," reported his intelligence officer, "the main Devourer force is still coming, and based on our analysis of their recent attacks, they're learning to counter our quantum disruption technique." Admiral Yoon studied the tactical displays showing the movement of enemy forces. The smaller Devourer groups they had defeated were just the advanced scouts. The real invasion force was still on its way, and it was much larger than anything they had faced so far. "How long before they developed complete immunity to our disruption attacks?" he asked. "Our computers estimate maybe 3 more battles," came the grim reply. "After that, they'll have adapted enough to ignore our quantum interference completely." The humans had won their first victory, but the war was far from over, and their most effective weapon would soon become useless. The final enemy appeared at the edge of space like a dark moon made of nightmares. The Devourer mothership was so large that it blocked out entire stars behind it. Its surface was covered with moving parts that shifted and changed constantly, like a living machine that had learned from every battle it had ever fought. Captain Shinho stood in a special room aboard the Prometheus, preparing for the most dangerous mission of his life. Around him, his crew was getting ready for the same procedure. They were about to do something that no human had ever done before, merge their minds directly with their ship's computers. "Are you sure about this, Captain?" asked Lieutenant Na Young, looking nervous as technicians attached cables to her head. "The doctors say there's no guarantee we'll still be human after this procedure." "We'll be more than human," Shinho replied, settling into the enhancement chair. "And right now, that's exactly what we need to be." Dr. Kim Hana was monitoring the procedure from her own chair, her brain already partially connected to the ship's quantum computer. "Integration is reaching 90%, she announced, her voice sounding strange as it came through both her mouth and the ship's speakers at the same time. "All systems are responding perfectly to direct neural control." The transformation was unlike anything they had ever experienced. Shinho felt his consciousness expand beyond his physical body, spreading through the ship's computer networks like water flowing through pipes. He could feel every sensor, every weapon, every system as if they were part of his own body. "This is incredible," whispered Na Young, her awareness now distributed across dozens of tactical computers. "I can see the entire battle space at once. Every enemy ship, every friendly vessel, all their movements and intentions." When the final battle began, it was unlike any form of warfare the galaxy had ever seen. The human ships moved with impossible precision, turning and diving through space in patterns that seemed to defy physics. The enhanced human crews could think and react faster than any computer, their movements guided by intuition, amplified by quantum processing power. The Devourer mothership had adapted to counter every human tactic used in previous battles. Its defensive systems could absorb energy weapons, deflect physical attacks, and even predict conventional battle strategies. But it had never faced an enemy that could change tactics faster than it could adapt. "They're trying to scan our attack patterns," reported Dr. Kim Hana, her consciousness spread across the ship's sensor arrays. "But we're changing our approach faster than they can analyze it." The human fleet moved like a school of fish, each ship responding instantly to the collective decisions of the enhanced crews. When the mothership adapted to defend against attacks from one direction, the humans were already striking from another. When it developed countermeasures for one type of weapon, they switched to completely different tactics. But the real breakthrough came when Captain Shinho realized what they needed to do. The mothership was a giant computer, constantly processing information and adapting to new threats. Like all computers, it followed logical rules and tried to solve every problem it encountered. "I have an idea," he announced, his voice coming through the communication systems of every human ship simultaneously. We're going to give it a problem it can't solve. Working together, the enhanced human crews created something that had never existed before, a logical paradox disguised as battle data. It was a mathematical impossibility, a question that had no answer, wrapped up to look like tactical information. Feeding the paradox into their network now, Shinho announced as his consciousness merged even deeper with the ship's systems. The paradox traveled through quantum space, infiltrating the mothership's communication network like a virus. The massive construct began to shudder as its central processing systems tried to solve the unsolvable problem. The Devourer mothership's adaptive programming, which had been its greatest strength, now became its weakness. It could not stop trying to resolve the paradox, even though no solution existed. The more processing power it devoted to the problem, the more confused it became. Systems began shutting down across the massive vessel as its computer networks became trapped in an endless loop. The geometric patterns on its surface stopped moving, its weapons stopped firing. Finally, the entire construct went dark as its central intelligence system crashed completely. The galaxy was saved, but the victory came with unexpected consequences. The enhanced human crews found that they could not easily return to their normal state. They had become something new, beings that existed partially in the physical world and partially in the digital realm of quantum computers. Months later, Ambassador Velteran stood once again in the Aurora Council chamber on Earth, but everything had changed. Through the crystal walls, he could see human ships moving freely through space, no longer confined to their home system. Earth's colonies were spreading across the galaxy, and everywhere they went, they were welcomed as heroes rather than feared as threats. "Your species," he said to President Lee Jun, his crystalline form flickering with colors of respect and admiration, "was our greatest mistake. Forgetting about Earth led to our salvation." President Lee looked out at the stars, where human vessels traveled along trade routes that had been closed to them for 2 centuries. "Perhaps," he replied thoughtfully, "but it also led to something better. The galaxy didn't just survive this crisis, it learned to grow." From space, Earth looked different. Now, it was no longer just a single world isolated from the rest of the universe. It had become the heart of a new kind of galactic civilization, one built on cooperation instead of fear, where being different was seen as a strength rather than a threat. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Sometimes the greatest allies come from the most unexpected places.